Garrett Crochet was dominant as the Sox shut out Toronto. Problem is, Eloy is hurt again. Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the fan-sided network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. Also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button. Also, follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. Well, the White Sox snapped a 4-game losing streak and finally won in Canada for the first time in what seems like forever with a 5-0 victory over the Toronto Blue Jays. Garrett Crochet pitched a gem, and I'll make sure to discuss it. But the bigger news is Eloy Jimenez. He left the game with a strained hamstring. Yes, Eloy is hurt, and his latest injury is what I will discuss first, and how it impacts the Sox' immediate, near, and long-term future. And normally we do way back Wednesday, but Nick Nastrini has been called up to pitch tonight, and I need to discuss why that is the right move. So instead, I'll do Throwback Thursday tomorrow and talk about Nastarini's recall in the final segment. But first, from brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only. Available to U.S. customers. Well, Corey Julks broke the game open for the Sox with a 2 RBI single in the 5th to make it 3-0. Andrew Vaughn and Eloy scored, but what should have been a nice highlight call for John Triffin turned into one of those early, probably what he would not want to be trademarked calls of no, as Eloy pulled up hurt, rounding third. Obviously, he crossed home plate, but he departed with what the White Sox said is a left hamstring strain. And after the game, manager Pedro Grifol said, and this is from Chicago Sun-Times beat reporter Daryl Van Schouwen, quote, "The tests weren't bad, but it's going to take him out of action for at least a couple of days, and it could be longer. Who knows," end quote. Who knows seems to be the running theme when it comes to any White Sox injury because they're never forthcoming. You know, Brian Ramos was supposed to be day-to-day, and then he was a 10-day IL. When it comes to Eloy, just put him on the IL, allow him to recover because, you know, death, taxes, and Eloy Jimenez are the three being injured are the 3 guarantees in life. And at this point, you can't even blame the White Sox training staff. I know they've come under a lot of scrutiny, especially for how they do things. But this one's on Eloy. He's had too many soft tissue injuries. You know, who knows what he's doing to take care of himself. Like, you can't say, well, he played right field on Sunday. That probably primed him to get hurt. It's on Eloy. I don't know if there's something biologically that allows his muscles to get strained like this, but it's just too many injuries. So what does this mean in the short term? Well, clearly you're going to lose a bat who has been productive the past 7 days with the 286, 348, 373 slash line. Obviously not a lot of slug, but you got some on base. You got some hitting out of Eloy. And he's obviously the best pure power hitter in the lineup for a lineup that is very, very sparse on power bats. On the flip side, it should clear up some playing time issues in the outfield. Gavin Sheets should now go back to DH as he came in, got 2 at-bats after Eloy exited. He should go back to DH, where he was very productive when Eloy was hurt at the beginning of the season. And that means the Sox should be able to get Corey Julks in the lineup more often and even get some at-bats for Dominic Fletcher. They can both man right field, or you can, put Pham and then Julks or Fletcher in center, and then go with Benintendi, who's been struggling in left. They played Zach Remillard in left field yesterday. We'll get into that in the next segment. And yeah, Julks has been swinging a hot bat since being acquired in a trade, and you might as well see what you got out of this guy. I know he's in the later portion of his 20s, but he's still relatively young. And hey, for the White Sox, he's definitely young when it comes to their prospects. And I discussed on yesterday's show how Pedro made some just terrible comments on why Fletcher was not playing because Andrew Benintendi is a pillar of the lineup despite having the worst OPS in baseball. And by the way, like I said, Benintendi was benched last night. And Pedro did admit why. It's because he's bad. But at least this allows Pedro to naturally play the outfield better because you're going to have natural outfielders. I mean, Gavin Sheets tries in right field. You got to give him credit. It's not like he's taking terrible lines he's not a natural outfielder, but it's not like he's not running and hustling. Unlike, say, sometimes what Andrew Benintendi does. But at least you're going to be playing natural outfielders. Because I'm just assuming Eloy's going on the 10-day IL. But how does this impact the Sox in the long run? Well, if it wasn't already decided, it has to be by now that Eloy's team option should not be picked up after the season. It's time to pull the plug. Admit that it didn't work out. That the trade for Jose Quintana to the Cubs to get Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez. Thanks, Cubs. It had some moments, but Quintana helped the Cubs get to the NLCS. And Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez helped the White Sox get one playoff win. You cannot trust him to be in the lineup. He missed 107 games in 2021, 78 in 2022, and 42 last season. And he's already missed 2 weeks this season with a soft tissue injury. His career high in games played came in 2019, his rookie year, and that was 122. You just can't depend on him. He's like this generation's version of my generation's version of Greg Walker. I remember Greg Walker, he was on the starting lineup figures that you could get, and you were like, who's this guy? I've never seen him play. Also, this means his trade value has to be next to nothing. I mean, when you look at his batting run value, it's poor according to Baseball Savant, and he has poor plate discipline. So you got an injured player or an injury-prone player who has poor batting run value and poor plate discipline. And for a power hitter, he sometimes struggles to get the ball in the air. I doubt a contender is going to be like, here's one of my top 10 prospects to help me get through the rest of the season. I need that bat. Well, let's get back to last night's victory and discuss Garrett Crochet's dominance on the mound last night next on Locked On White Sox. And PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. If your skill is picking more or less, you can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps. Money and easy? Yeah, that's something I want to do. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch those winnings roll in. If Andrew Benintendi is in the lineup tonight, I would recommend picking less on the 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs, as he currently has the worst OPS in baseball. Or you can go more on the 0.5 strikeouts I have on him because he might be pressing, and then maybe pair him up with the more on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 0.5 runs. Or you can go less on the 1.5 Andrew Vaughn hits plus runs plus RBIs because he's been struggling to get multi-hit games recently. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox face the Toronto Blue Jays in the rubber match of a 3-game set. First pitch is at 6:07 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I'm actually looking forward to the White Sox Talk podcast with Chuck Carfine today. He's supposed to be talking with player development director Paul Janisch. But again, I just ask that I'm the first one that you take in. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. Well, Garrett Crochet continues to keep runs off the board. He extended his scoreless inning streak to 19 as he went 6 innings last night, allowed just 2 hits, walked 1, and struck out 4. He, in the early goings, was briefly flirting with a perfect game, as I believe he retired the first 13 batters he faced. And Crochet's ERA is now down to 3.75 after it ballooned to 6.73 after he had 3 rough starts between career start 4 through 6. But since then, he's back to that ace, that ace potential, as he has given up just 3 earned runs over his past 5 starts. And his whip is now down to 0.95. And he leads the American League in strikeouts with 74. That's good for second overall in the majors. Now, he's clearly reached dude status or stud status on the mound. And he's on his way to being a bona fide ace. And it's almost now you got to wonder, can the White Sox get 2 all-star representatives? Because you got Eric Fetty pitching outstanding. And now you've got Crochet, obviously, just dominating on the mound. And if he keeps at this rate, maybe Cy Young votes. Basically, the sky's the limit right now for Garrett Crochet. He's one of the few bright spots in an absolutely awful season. Sorry, quick coffee sip there, as you guys know. Things I love: White Sox baseball and coffee. Although I question my sanity as to why I love White Sox baseball. But it's because, hey, sometimes, it's a roller coaster ride. There's highs and there's lows. But especially when Garrett Crochet pitches, it's definitely a high in terms of the high points of the season, because he's must-see TV, especially with this stuff. I mean, he's throwing, 99-mile-an-hour fastballs. I mean, he's just throwing just wicked stuff with his secondary stuff. And again, it's to the point where the White Sox would be best served to, make sure they sign him to an extension. That's a guy that you want to get signed through his arbitration years. Get cost control on him. Because either you're going to have a steal if you can get things turned around quickly, which is, I mean, the bright spot, the path that they can take, as I keep saying, is you've got some very promising starting pitching in the farm system, one of which is Nick Nastrini, which I will talk about in the next segment. But you got that. And then plus, especially if you decline Eloy's option and Yohan Moncada's option, you only have about 32.1 million, I believe, wrapped up in 2 guaranteed contracts next year in Luis Robert Jr. and Andrew Benintendi. So you got some money to spend theoretically. Now, we do still have to be careful with Garrett Crochet. He did have 73 career innings coming into this season in Tommy John surgery in 2022. So, he was very effective last night. That's why he was able to go 6. He ran into a little bit of trouble in the 6th inning. That's probably why he couldn't go 7, because his pitch count got a little bit higher than probably would have liked. I bet you if he had a more efficient 6th inning, he would have maybe have come in on the 7th. But the bullpen took it the rest of the way. Jordan Leisure, he bounced back nicely after giving up his first career home run yesterday. And you could tell that really, really rattled him. It really did. He was struggling to find the strike zone after that home run he gave up, but he came back nicely. And he's been another great find. He's definitely going to be the anchor of the bullpen for the next couple of years. And Michael Kopech, once again, he was throwing straight heat in the 9th inning. I would say package him with Eric Fetty at the trade deadline to get the best possible return. Think about it. If the Sox could get Nick Nastrini and Jordan Leisure for Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly, imagine what they could get for a younger relief pitcher with closer ability in Michael Kopech, who, as long as he's throwing his secondary stuff well, can be a dominant relief pitcher. And then Eric Fetty, who, yes, he's in his 30s, but he still is relatively cheap and controllable for next year as he's signed to a very affordable deal. And you've seen that he's made the necessary changes after going to Korea to be a very, very solid starting pitcher. And right now, I would say he's an all-star starting pitcher. I think that's going to get you your best return. Also, Michael Kopech is going to be an interesting case study that maybe the Sox should use when it comes to developing starters, or at least evaluating what should you do if they start to struggle. You let them maybe go through it a little bit, but once you see that maybe they just struggle getting through the second or third part of the lineup, ask yourself, do they have the mental and physical makeup? Because Michael Kopech just didn't have the physical makeup. He was getting tired out on the mound as a starter. He kind of needed that extra time to power up, and then when the pitch clock came in, he didn't have that time to get his power bar back up. Now you've seen that he's adjusted, but he only has to get a few outs, and he likes to throw the ball as hard as he can. So just have him do it in the bullpen. And you can measure then, how is that starter secondary stuff relative to the velocity that they can throw? If they can throw hard, but their secondary stuff isn't as good, like Michael Kopech, or at least they can't command that secondary stuff like Michael Kopech had struggled to, maybe that's a bullpen pitcher. And again, there's nothing wrong with developing bullpen pitchers, because as we saw, one of the things that sunk the rebuild version 1 under Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams was they put way too much money into that bullpen. And with the limited financial resources the team had, it did not allow them to properly address second base and right field, or find a player that could get them over the top. So again, use younger, cheap, inexpensive arms. Well, speaking of pitching development, Nick Nastrini is up and will start tonight. Let's discuss why that is the right call next on Locked On White Sox. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships. is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And the White Sox face the Toronto Blue Jays in the rubber match of a 3-game set tonight. First pitch is at 6:07 Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And if you've stuck with me through the first two segments, you know we've talked about Eloy being hurt and Garrett Crochet being dominant. And I want to thank you, especially you everydayers who tune in, especially those that smash that like button or give 5-star reviews. You guys are the best. It's one of the reasons why I do this. We're in this together. It's a terrible season. We're hoping for better days. And if you want to see a glimpse of the future, try to find some AA Birmingham Barons games, because that's where the future rotation is. A very talented potential future rotation, as long as it stays healthy and actually develops. Although the White Sox don't have a lot of great hitting prospects. That's something that they need to address in this year's draft. Speaking of prospects, though, Nick Nastrini is back up. He is scheduled to start, as that was the decision the White Sox made to take Brad Keller's place in the rotation after he was DFA'd. Thankfully, they did not go with Michael Soroka. He did make a case after he was demoted to the bullpen, pitched really well on Saturday out of the bullpen in 4 innings. Still had 4 walks. But the Sox made the wise choice, and they recalled Nick Nastrini. He had 2 starts with the big league club in April, made that debut on April 15th against the Royals. Went 5 innings where he gave up 2 runs, allowed 3 hits, struck out 5, and walked 2. And then he got roughed up by the Phillies in his next outing, as he allowed 6 runs, 5 of them earned, and 3 innings, walked 5, and then he was sent back to Charlotte, because I guess you need to see what type of starter you have in Brad Keller. Even though all of Major League Baseball, 29 other teams, were like, this guy, not good. We're not signing him. I mean, again, think about it. The White Sox chose a guy that they signed in spring training, midway through spring training, over Nick Nastrini, who had a great spring training, who earned a spot. Although Nick must have not taken his demotion well, because when he went back to Charlotte in his first start, he gave up 8 runs, 7 earned. Although in his last 3 starts, he's only given up 6 runs. And now Nick needs to stay the rest of the year. I know the plan was probably, let's see if Michael Soroka, Mike Clevenger, and Brad Keller can get us through to the trade deadline, build up some value, and let's flip him for some prospects. And Clevenger has been his start. He was supposed to start tonight. It's been pushed back to tomorrow. But that was such flawed logic, at least with Clevenger and Keller. Because remember, and I'll keep talking about it, Clevenger was available to the open market twice, and no one wanted him. Last year he was waived. No one wanted to take on his contract, despite having despite having good numbers. Then he was a free agent after he declined his option, and no one wanted him. And Brad Keller, again, he went through the entire free agency. No one wanted him. And you can hope, hey, I mean, I get it. You got to find guys off the scrap heap, but look at the scrap heap and see, like, again, look for more guys like they should have looked for more guys like Eric Fetty. Now, granted, he was in Korea and you had to find him, but find those types of stories, guys that maybe did something that you could say, you know what, they made some changes, they added a pitch. Let's take a gamble because maybe they're being overlooked. But Brad Keller made Brad Keller didn't add like this amazing sweeper. Mike Clevenger always is going to have character concerns. And again, we wasted time. Time was wasted because nothing was gained when Brad Keller got roughed up by the Yankees on Saturday. He is what he is. But Nick Nastrini, had he stayed up after the Philly series, we could have at least seen. How does he bounce back from adversity? Now, clearly we saw him get roughed up in Charlotte, but then he's come back his last 3 outings and he's been very good. And the young starting pitching is going to be the path that the Sox need to take to get back to being competitive. And Nastrini has the stuff. We've seen the flash of potential. He has the stuff to be part of that rotation. And now he needs to learn at the big league level. He needs to learn how to command his pitches at the big league level and avoid the walks. You know, you face the Royals, first game start. He looked very confident. He looked like he belonged. But then you go take on one of the best teams in baseball. Maybe you're a little bit more intimidated. He needs to go through those growing pains, especially when this season doesn't matter. Nothing is lost. You're not contending for the AL Central. Brad Keller and Mike Clevenger are going to get you nothing but, maybe a scratch off, maybe a flyer prospect. But again, I think the White Sox the front office really overvalued those two pitchers, and they're still overvaluing Clevenger. But hey, at least they made the right call by bringing up Nastrini instead of going with Soroka. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss the Sox series finale with the Blue Jays and what to look for in the next series with the Orioles. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button and give a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know your thoughts on today's topics regarding Eloy's latest injury, Garrett Crochet's dominance on the mound, and Nick Nastrini getting recalled to start tonight. You can leave them at Twitter at ToddJDub or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.